We now proceed to the final verse of the chapter. Verse 28 of chapter 8 is the fourth that we are exploring. Vedeshu yagneshu tapasu chaiva daneshu yat punya phalam pradishtam atyeti tat sarvamidam viditva yogi param sthanam upaiti chadyam. Joy. Opening up just the first word, Vedeshu, which means in the Veda. The Veda, which we associate with a book, should be thought of more as setting precedent. Those who are joy, those who are independent, those who are wise, they have set precedent for us in terms of what our potential is, to be joy, to be independent, to be wise. And the Veda offers the means for us to reach this potential, to realize this potential. The Veda sets precedent. It is the means to realize our potential. And Shri Krishna specifies. The means are yajna, tapa, and dana. These three practices pervade the Bhagavad Gita, all over chapter 17, all over chapter 18. What do these mean? Yajna in English is dedication. To try to understand this, this is like one's vision. I wake up today because I'm going to dedicate. So this is the vision, but there has to be a mission. There has to be an action. That's where the next two practices come in. Tapa is renunciation. So I have this vision of dedication. That means there has to be renunciation. I have to let go. And dana would be contribution. I'm letting go of my sense of individuality, and I'm living for, through resources, time, and effort, what's bigger than me. Family, community, society, humanity, finally divinity. The Veda teaches us about vision. This is implemented through renunciation and contribution. Who's the beneficiary in all of this? You. And that's why Shri Krishna shares, punya phalam pradishtam. By following these means or this precedent, you accumulate merit. You benefit from the results. Everyone's clear about the first two quarters? Okay. But this is just setting up the context for the main message, which comes in the third and fourth quarter. Atyeti means beyond. Tat sarvamidam, all that you get from Veda, Yajna, Tapa, Dana, viditva, you should know beyond the punya that comes from living like this, beyond this is the ends. The ends is knowing. Knowing what you are is the ends. There is no understanding of the Veda if one is not knowing what they are. They're relating to the Veda in a casual way, not a serious way. Similarly, if one's engaged in dedication, renunciation, contribution, but you're not. Knowing what life is, what you are more, then really you're not engaged in all of that. The Bhagavad Gita's primary direction is in jnana, to know. To know who you are. So who are you in the final quarter? Yogi, the one who has followed the means with the vision of what these means are for. Param stanum, they are established in the highest, in the deepest. Upaiti chadyam, this highest, this deepest, this is beyond creation. Beyond creation. Going through this one more time. This is our last verse of this chapter. I had earlier started with, why focus on dying when you can focus on freeing? That sentiment is shared in the last verse. The first two lines are about those who are living for the relative. Punya, punya, punya. Those who are ritualistic tend to be like this. But that's not what the design of the Bhagavad Gita is. It is about freeing. It is about going beyond relativity, and that's only possible through knowing. I've forgotten what I am. The reason I'm alive is to know who I am, and once I know who I am, sthanum, I am established in the center. I can be unmoved. I will be unmoved from this. Universally, one of the scariest experiences for a human, really any being, is death. And that's why death is the reference that is used in chapter 8. What I was told about Pujaswami Chinmayananda, when someone passed away and he was informed about this, he would not ask, how did they die? He would ask, how did they live? Our less reflective personalities were always interested in the sensation of how they died. But for someone who's more reflective, how did they live? Because how they live will be indicative of how they die. Those who are reflective, they age and die gracefully. Those who are not reflective, they age and die fitfully. And in this chapter, how you die determines how you will live in your next lifetime. This chapter is about living, but living while remembering divinity. If you remember divinity, you will return to divinity. We typically take the statement or the fact, as you think, so you become, in such a gross way. If I think about clothes, then I'm going to go buy clothes. But here, Shri Krishna is taking this to such a magnificent way. If you remember divinity, you will return to divinity. Yesterday, I'd shared with all of you how I try to determine reality. Do you remember what I'd shared in terms of reality? What makes an entity more real? What makes an entity less real? The gauge is independence. The more independent, the more real. If you reflect on individuality, family, community, society, humanity, divinity, which is the most independent?
Divinity is the most independent, so that makes divinity the most dependable. Us living and remembering divinity, this is not poetic. This is practical. Divinity is the most dependable. When we do live and remember divinity, our lifestyles, our verbs start to stabilize. If you find you're too much of an emotional person, you shift between extremes too much, I'm going to extrapolate that you're not remembering divinity enough. That's why that stability is missing. And so in our applications, I've been insisting, as soon as you wake up, you become conscious of you, bow down to where you are living. Next was bow down to where you are transporting. Some of you don't have cars. You take a train, you take a bus. You can still have your altar where you're transporting. All of this is summarized in verse 28. In verse 28, in the first line, Shri Krishna offers the means to remember him: yajna, tapa, dana. Dedication is like our inside world. This is my vision. Renunciation is like my inside-outside world. There's a transition. I have to have that feeling of renunciation inside, but it does manifest outside. And then contribution. That is outside. I hope you're catching the practicality. Remembering divinity from the inside out. In the second line, Shri Krishna shares, for the one who is following through with remembering, they will return never to leave that center ever again. The race is over. One can rest. My final thought on chapter 8, and then we transition into chapter 9. In the Narada Bhakti Sutra, there's a lovely sequence of sutras where Rishi Vyasa shares the best way to offer puja, the best way to practice bhakti is puja, offering puja. The best way to practice devotion is to offer rituals. In the next sutra, Rishi Garga shares the best way is kata. It is not offering rituals, but rather listening to the glories of the divine. In the next sutra, Rishi Shandilya shares it is dhyana on one's atma. In other words, contemplating on feeling divinities in your heart. Puja, kata, dhyana. From the outside, inside, correct? But then this sequence is summarized by Rishi Narada, who shares, it doesn't matter what you do as long as you feel divinity. It is just not a specific verb. It is a vision. So all of us have access to this application. And if you're not applying, you are putting up your own barriers to entry. This is what is most lovely about Bhagavad Gita. It is universal, universally accessible.